after lunch here. Ms. Davis, if you would please call we'll introduce, I guess, the next, which was the sub item under 2B, or under 2.
Thank you, sir. The second sub-item 2B, the BOE General Assessment of Training, discussion of BOE Appraiser Certification Requirements, BOE Appraiser and Auditor Appraiser Training Programs, and opportunities for modernization. Example, Expand Appraiser Training Program, and opportunities for modernization.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Would you please call our first speaker?
The first and only speaker is Mr. David Young, Deputy Director, Property Tax Department, Board of Equalization. Mr. Young.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Vasquez and honorable members of the board. My name is David Young. I am the Deputy Director of the Property Tax Department. And actually, with your indulgence, I will not be the only speaker on this issue. I have with me also Ms. Patricia Lumsden. She is the chief of the County Assessed Properties Division, which oversees the appraiser training and certification program. So with your indulgence, I will ask her, invite her to help co-present this issue with me. So Ms. Lumsden, if you are available.
Yes, I am available. Good afternoon, Chairman Vasquez and honorable board members. My name is Patty Lumsden, and I'm the chief of the State Board of Equalization's County Assessed Properties Division. And as Dave mentioned, as part of my duties, I oversee the Assessment Services and Training Unit. So today I will be providing with you some general information on the BOE's Appraiser Training and Certification Program and the role the BOE plays in providing that training and certification for not only the BOE staff, but also for county assessors and their staff. So I'm going to start with our certification process. And under Revenue and Taxation Code Section 670A, it provides that no person shall perform the duties or exercise the authority of an appraiser for property tax purposes as an employee of the state, any county or city and county, unless he or she is the holder of a valid appraiser's or advanced appraiser's certificate issued by the State Board of Equalization. Further, Revenue and Taxation Code Section 670B provides that the board shall provide the examination of applicants for these certificates, and the examination shall be prepared by the board with advice and assistance of a committee of 5 assessors selected by the California Assessors Association for this purpose. Further, for auditor appraisers, Revenue and Taxation Code Section 670D provides that provides an additional requirement for auditor appraisers that no employee of the state or any county or city and county shall perform the duties or exercise the authority of an auditor or auditor appraiser under Section 469 or Section 15624 of the Government Code unless he or she holds a degree with a specialization in accounting from a recognized institution of higher education or is a licensed accountant in the state of California or has passed the state or county and county or city civil service or merit system examination or holds the office of assessor. And we'll discuss those requirements for auditor appraisers later in my presentation. So the BOE, based on the statutory requirements, the BOE issues 3 levels of certification. And they are temporary appraiser certification, permanent appraiser certification, which is for appraisers, and then also allows auditor appraiser designation. Advanced appraiser, and then the third one is advanced appraiser certificate. So the first one is the temporary certification, and that usually happens when an employee is hired by the BOE or one of the county assessor's offices to perform the duties of an appraiser or auditor appraiser. They are typically issued a temporary certificate and allows them to perform those duties while gaining that experience and knowledge towards passing what's called permanent certification exam. So under Rule 282, Property Tax Rule 282, it allows for that temporary certification as well as Revenue and Taxation Code Section 673. And the appraiser or auditor appraiser can hold that that temporary certification for up to 1 year and must pass within that year a certification exam so that they can become permanently certified through the Board of Equalization. And they can take that exam as many times as they need to in order to pass, but they must pass within a 1 year period of time, or they will not be able to be certified to perform those duties. And the temporary certificate cannot be renewed, so if you have not passed within that 1 year's period of time, then you will not be able to be certified. The other requirement of temporary certification under Property Tax Rule 282 is that you must meet the requirements of permanent certification under Property Tax Rule 283A. So I'm going to move on to the permanent certification requirements, which are under Property Tax Rule 283A, and it provides that the BOE shall issue a permanent certificate to any person employed by the state, county, or city and county, or appraisal commission to perform the duties of an appraiser for property tax purposes who, within 1 year of employment, receives a passing grade on a certification exam prepared or approved by the BOE and who meets the following minimum qualifications. So they must be employed to perform the duties of an appraiser by the state, county, or city and county. They must receive a passing grade on a certification examination within 1 year of employment, and either the person is a graduate of an accredited 4-year institution of higher education, a 4-year degree in other words, or the person has graduated from high school or its equivalent and has 4 years of relevant experience within the last 10 years. So that relevant experience means experience in any of the following occupations or combination of experience in these following occupations. They can be have experience as an accountant, auditor, real property appraiser, building cost estimator, engineer, real estate loan agent, real estate loan underwriter, right-of-way agent, licensed building contractor, or real estate licensee licensed by the California Department of Real Estate engaged in buying, selling, leasing, or managing real estate, or be an appraiser aide or appraiser trainee in an assessor's office or in the BOE's property tax department, or as an employee other than an appraiser aide or appraiser trainee of an assessor's office. So in other words, they can have any other position in the assessor's office or the BOE's office other than an appraiser or auditor appraiser. But that amount of time they can only count as 2/3 time towards their 4-year experience. So say if you worked in the office for 10 years, you can only count 2.67 years of that experience towards your 4 years. And the other 1.33 years would be counted as some other relevant experience already mentioned before, or it can be used from education that they received from an institution of higher education. So the combination of that would allow them to still meet the requirements under Property Tax Rule 283A to become certified. So in addition to meeting those requirements that I just specified under Property Tax Rule 283A, an auditor appraiser has a little bit more of a condition of requirement. So because of Revenue and Taxation Code Section 670D, in addition to the requirements I already mentioned, the auditor appraiser must have a 4-year degree from an accredited institution of higher education with a specialization in accounting, or be a licensed accountant in California, such as CPA, or pass a state or civil service exam for the position of accountant or auditor, or hold the office of assessor. So the 4-year degree with a specialization in accounting was defined in our guidelines training and certification, which was issued in a letter to assessors in 2015 on LTA number 2015-49, and it goes on to describe that specialization in accounting can mean either a 4-year degree in accounting, or it can mean a 4-year degree in some other major, but with coursework in either of the following. And it would require you to have either 18 semester units or quarter equivalents in accounting and or auditing courses, or 19 semester units, 16 of which must be in accounting and auditing, and the other 3 units could be in business law or an economics course. And so, like I said, these requirements can be found in our guidelines for appraiser certification and training. And those guidelines were worked on with the 5 assessors from the California Assessors Association and adopted by the board members in 2015. So the last type of certification is then the advanced certification, and that's covered under Revenue and Taxation Code Section 671B. And in order to get an advanced appraiser certificate, that shall be issued if the appraiser has an appraiser certificate from the board has held one for at least 3 years and has successfully completed a course of study or has passed an advanced level examination, which the Board of Equalization gives, or holds a valid professional designation from a recognized professional organization. And that would be such as an MAI designation from the Appraisal Institute, or Certified General Appraiser license from the California Department of Real Estate, for example. And we mentioned some other designations as well in our guidelines and training. And so we also offer the course of study as well, which we can talk about a little bit more once I start talking about the training. So now moving on to the appraisal training requirements. So once someone obtains their permanent appraiser certificate, they're required under Revenue and Taxation Code Section 671A to complete 24 hours of board-conducted or board-approved training. And then in order for someone that has an advanced appraiser certificate, they only need to complete 12 hours of board-conducted or board-approved annual training, and that's under Revenue and Taxation Code Section 671B. And then failure to maintain that continuing education would be grounds for revocation of the certificate. So that's why it's so important that we continue having the training courses for staff to be able to take to get their and maintain their certification. So we provide training in the form of courses, workshops, webinars, and where instruction is either given in a classroom or, prior to COVID, classroom setting or online. And to teach our classroom-based courses, we utilize BOE staff, retired annuitants, county assessor staff that have been approved by the BOE to teach for us. And when a county staff member teaches for us, they do teach our course with our course material, and we provide it to them. They just simply teach that class. It should be noted that in addition to this training, we also offer the BOE approves and grants training hours for numerous non-BOE courses and workshops and seminars, conferences that meet the requirements for training credits, as also is provided in our guidelines for appraiser certification and training, as previously mentioned. So the BOE has 12 in-person classroom courses, and prior to COVID, we were actively giving 9 of those 12 courses, and we were actually working on 2 more of those to bring those back out to be taught. They were auditor appraiser type courses. So the courses vary. That we have some advanced, and the combination of these courses also allow you to gain your advanced certification, as we talked about previously. And the advanced certification, not only is it good because it gives the appraiser more knowledge and experience in appraising, but it's also helpful in that, again, you only have to take 12 hours of continuing education each year, as opposed to the 24 hours required under the permanent certification. And in addition to that, some counties offer additional compensation for staff members that have their advanced certification, or they have it for promotional ability as well. So it's important that they are able to take those additional classes. So in addition to our in-person classes that we offer, we also offer some online courses, which we talked about, you may have heard talked about previously, were Property Tax 310 and Property Tax 311, which are two courses that we offer through a partnership with American River College. We provide the material, and American River College has approved our BOE staff to be adjunct professors, and they teach those courses. Students that enroll in it will pay a fee to American River College, and they do get college credits towards once they complete it. The American River College courses are open not only to BOE staff, county assessors, and the general. They're also offered to the general public as well. And then we also have a third online course that we offer, which is basic appraisal, offered through a partnership with Sacramento State College of Continuing Education Course Management. So this provides the same information offered in Property Tax 310. However, this does not have an instructor. The course is actually free to the students, and it's offered on a monthly basis. However, it does not count towards any college credits, which is a little bit different. We also have self-paced online courses. We have 3 of those, and they are the valuation of personal property and fixtures, the income approach to value, which is course 5, the time value of money, 6 functions of a dollar, which are all offered online. And the course 5 that I mentioned, that is also one of the courses needed to obtain an advanced certification. In addition to the online classes that we teach, we also have self-study online sessions, which are, we have 38 classes now offered online. We just added another one that has to do with state assessed properties manual that we just added to that. We also are involved in the CASA webinars that is through in conjunction with the CAA, and there are multiple classes offered through CASA. And as you heard Christina Nguyen mention earlier, that CASA is already getting on board with offering these webinars remotely, and so that we're looking forward to working with them to facilitate that. So those are the classes that we currently offer. Our staff that we have right now in training consists of 1 senior appraiser staff member, and we have been able to improve the amount of classes in person that we were able to offer recently prior to the COVID by bringing in 2 knowledgeable and experienced retired annuitants to help us teach these classes, and that has helped us a lot. Plus, we have used several of our subject matter expert staff members here in our office to teach some of the other classes, and we are working towards them teaching some of our advanced classes, because that's where we kind of have lost a lot of our experience and had been relying a lot on the assessor staff to help us with teaching those classes, which of course we still do. But we have been working towards taking on that task again, and then COVID hit, and we kind of are now having to change how we are presenting all of our classes. And as mentioned earlier, we actually are already looking into teaching our classes remotely, because that seems to be the way we need to go. And we kind of had hoped that with the COVID that it wouldn't have lasted as long as it has. And so now we've already started working towards teaching these classes remotely. But as you heard Jim Glickman mention earlier, it does definitely take a lot of time to try to get these classes to convert over into that format, and then determining what type of a format we're going to use to do that going forward. I actually have been in talks with Jim Glickman because he has been on the forefront of teaching these remote type training. And so he's been very generous in sharing with us a lot of the information that he has, and the information and the links to find out more about getting certified as an online instructor. So all of those things have been really very helpful to us. And so we're just definitely looking down the road to moving towards remotely, and not just because of COVID. I mean, that's what's kind of made us look into it. But now as we're looking into it, we're looking at this as a good way for us in the future to go forward with using remote learning on a regular basis, in addition with possible some in-person as well. But a lot of these suggestions that I've heard have been very helpful. We do currently require in-person proctoring the exams, but we have been working with counties to have them either proctored here in our office with social distancing, or through county HR departments, depending on where the county is located. So we've been working on that, but that is something that we can look into also in terms of trying to work on the way the exams are being proctored. So we're definitely looking forward to moving forward with some modernization to our program. There's always room for improvement. I think with what we have in terms of staffing right now, as it was mentioned earlier, we were down, that division was downsized in 2008, and so we've slowly been trying to recover from that and improve our department, so we're always looking for more opportunities to improve and to modernize it going forward. And that ends my presentation. If anyone has any questions for me, or if Dave would like to add anything to that, David Young.
Thank you, Ms. Lumsden. I think you did a fantastic job. Thank you. We are available for any questions or comments you may have.
The big question I have, real quick, David, is how is that you were able to get Ms. Lumsden to perform on her birthday? I mean, I heard she just turned 21.
I hesitate to mention what I had to promise her, but but yes, you are correct. Happy birthday, Ms. Lumsden.
Thank you very much.
Chairman Vasquez, Yvette Stowers here.
Ms. Stowers, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, first of all, happy birthday. Did you say that you have 12 BOE courses that are classroom settings?
Yes, that is correct. We currently have a total of 12 courses that we have taught in person, either currently before COVID or in the past. There's 3 that, one of them we aren't currently teaching simply because one of the courses was taught by one of our recently retired staff members, and we haven't been able to replace him yet with finding someone that can teach that course, so it hasn't been taught in maybe a couple of years. However, the other 2 courses that we were in the process of working with Los Angeles County and bringing those courses back, they hadn't been taught in several years, like probably 10 or more years. So that has been a little bit more of a challenge, but LA County had reached out to us to ask us if they can assist in trying to bring those 2 courses back. So we were in the process of doing that. And then, like I said, COVID has hit, so it's kind of changed our whole way of doing our courses this year.
Are those courses for continuing education or for the advanced certification?
Well, they're both. So advanced certification, and I'm trying not to go into too much detail for you guys, but the advanced certification requires that the person takes 1 course in anything, which typically is the basic appraisal course, and then they need to take course 2A, which is a residential cost estimating course, and then course 3, which is a course on the basic appraising. I mean, it's a little bit more advanced than the course 1. And those courses, and then plus take 2 advanced courses. And some of the advanced courses are agricultural class. There's course 7 and course 52, which is the CLCA part of that agricultural course. There's course 56, which is the advanced income class, and I should also state that course 5, which is the income approach, which is also offered online. That is one of the core courses required as well. Then possessory interest class is one of the advanced ones. Also, course 120, which has to do with calculator, the HP 12 calculator, and that's an advanced course as well.
Okay. Okay, I'm looking at the BOE training on the website, and I'm just trying to get some clarification if those advanced courses, if they were all online, or if they were all, they were offered them in classroom settings, but now we're switching to remote due to COVID.
Yeah, no, the majority of those classes were taught in person, which is what some of the concerns were expressed by the different speakers, is because the majority of them were taught in person. And course 5 is one of the few that is taught online, and then we're working on trying to make course 3 online as well, which are 2 of the courses needed for your advanced certification. But the majority of these classes, the remainder classes, are all taught in person, and so we're working towards being able to teach those remotely so that we can continue on not only providing the education, but also providing the assessor staff the ability to get their advanced certification.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Sure. And thank you for the happy birthday wishes.
Not a problem. Members, any other questions?
If I could, Chair Vasquez, this is Member Gaines. And I want to thank you for the presentation, and I just wanted to focus a little bit more on the advanced certification. You talked about the fail rate of the exam, and do we have a handle on what that fail rate is statewide?
I'm sorry, I didn't talk about a fail rate on the exam.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, do you have any idea what that fail rate is? I'm just curious.
Not very many people take the advanced certification exam because they usually take the course of study. But the ones that have taken it, we haven't had that many fail, but there just aren't that many that take it.
Okay. All right.
But it is an option, and it's definitely an option that's available even more so now because of the issue with not being able to take these classes at this time.
Sure. Okay. And then you gave us some breakdown of the number of years of experience in an assessor's office, and maybe it's broader than that, beyond an assessor's office. I'm not clear on that, but you mentioned 2.67 years. And then complemented with 1.33 years of education. Is that model working? Here we are taking a look at workforce and how to expand it quickly. And I'm just wondering, is this a relic that needs to be adjusted and reformed? Or can we still live within this requirement of this breakdown of roughly 2/3 in office and 1/3 education?
Yeah, and to clarify that a little bit further, it could be 2/3 office experience, but 1/3 can be in either education or a combination of any other fields that we mentioned in that combination of relevant experience too. So it would be like, they could come from the outside with some experience as an accountant and come in and use a combination of that experience.
Okay.
So, I think it allows, I think it allows to expand, again, not needing to have that 4-year degree. It allows someone who's worked in the assessor's office for, several years and come up through the ranks to be able to use that with a combination of some education. And what that number of education hours would be equivalent to 1 year, it would be 30 semester units of education. So it just allows them to be able to have that experience, which is very valuable, of working in the assessor's office, and then be able to move into the appraiser series.
Okay, so that the education you're speaking of is the 12 courses?
No, the education would be education from an institution of higher education. So if they went to college and took some college courses, but they didn't finish their degree, but they took some courses, that would allow them to take those units that they acquired and combine them with their experience in the office and meet the requirements.
Okay. So what would be your number one priority in terms of preparing ourselves for the existing problem of the blue tsunami for baby boomers retiring, but also the onslaught that would happen if Prop 15 passes? What would be?
Well, there's several things that we would need to do. Dave, did you want to speak to that?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to if you. Why don't you go ahead and I'll chime in.
Sure. So I think one of our big priorities would be staffing, and we would need to, obviously, I mean, we already are in need of staffing for our training unit, and then being able to train and actually certify, because it's not just providing the training to not only our own staff, but to the assessor's staff, is that the certification process of it is also cumbersome. So we have one person that keeps track of all 58 counties plus the Board of Equalization's appraiser and auditor appraiser staff, and if each of those counties' staff increased the keeping track of all of the education courses that they've taken, providing and approving classes, it's a long process. So we would definitely need to increase our staffing. That would be the biggest thing. And then again, trying to get on board with teaching these classes remotely so that we can hopefully offer more classes without having to do the traveling, would maybe allow us to expand the number of classes that we can offer. We would still need the instructors, more instructors than we currently have. But it would allow us to not need to do the traveling, and also for assessor staff, that would help them as well to not have to do the traveling and pay for staying, traveling and staying overnight. So I think those things. So
that would be, is that online that you're talking about? Online classes?
Well, it would be remotely, so virtually, doing a virtual training.
Okay.
Yeah, a combination of that, because we still have a few classes we'd like to convert to online, strictly online class, but this would be to teach our current in-person classes by virtual training.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Members, are there any other questions?
I have none, Vice Chair Schaefer.
Thank you. Ms. Towers, are you done?
Yes, I'm done. I'm still having some confusion on which courses are online, which courses are not, but I'm willing to take that offline for further discussion. Let's move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dowers. This is Brenda Fleming. We're happy to circle back with you on that.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question, and I'm not sure, is this for Mr. Young or Ms. Lumsden? But when you were mentioning that there's ways to, I guess, bring in appraisers in at a much faster pace through these other certificates. If the will was within the board to move in the direction of trying to expedite this with like an AA degree and provide like an emergency certificate, what rule change, is it a rule change we need or legislation from the BOE to make that happen?
Miss, I can field that if that's okay with you, Ms. Patty.
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, So right now, the requirements are actually, they are embedded in both statute and, well, they're actually embedded in three things: the statute, property tax rules, and our own guidance that we adhere to, as Ms. Lumsden has stated in LTA 2015/049. So if we were to look at right now, a 4-year degree is actually not required. It is one way to be certified. The other way to be certified is qualifying experience. So if we were to look at only having an AA degree, that would require a property tax rule change. Right now, if somebody were to come in, let's say with a certificate, and work for an assessor's office, there are things they could do, there are duties they can do. They could be designated a trainee, and there are many duties that they can perform, and some of them are actually in our guidelines that they can do while they are getting the required experience, and the total combination of their job, work experience, and their AA degree or certificate program would qualify them for it. So they can do it that way. But if you're looking at somebody who wants to come in with only a 2-year degree or a certificate and no qualifying additional experience, and you want them to be able to perform the duties of an appraiser as it is enumerated in our property tax rules, actually make a value judgment and place it on the roll for property tax purposes, that is a rule change.
Okay, so I guess I'm thinking maybe one modification might be is that we allow them to come in maybe for that first year as they're being trained by you folks, with the understanding that they wouldn't be able to do the value probably until after they pass, because there is an exam I guess you offer as well, right?
There is. The certification exam is, you actually, even with the degree and with the experience, you do need to pass the certification exam. Correct.
That's what I'm thinking. You think it's too much to ask if you were to bring somebody in with an AA degree and maybe a year's worth of, I guess, I don't know if you would say an internship or training with you folks in preparation for that exam, and they take the exam, would they be likely to pass it after a year?
Would they be likely to pass it after a year? It would all depend on the nature and how diligently they apply themselves to that training. I think there is a good chance they would pass it, but that there's no guarantee. But right now, the way the rules are set up, with an AA degree, which is only a 2-year degree, and only one more year of qualifying experience, it would still not meet the requirements for a certification. It's for combined education and relevant experience. So that would require a rule change.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we had a 2-year degree, if we required an AA degree, like a 2-year degree, but the degree had to be like in business or real estate, something that's that I think would put them in that path to become
right. It would put them in the path.
Yeah. Okay. Was there somebody else that wanted to chime in?
Yes, Yvette Stowers here.
Go ahead.
I understand the importance of trying to increase the staffing, and perhaps having an AA 2-year degree would increase the capacity. And but I'm kind of going back to Rule 283. Dave, you're saying that's the rule that would need to be amended if we just went with the degree without work experience?
Well, if you're talking about a 2-year degree, yes.
Is that
4-year degree?
I understand a 4-year degree, we wouldn't have to do anything. But I'm just kind of looking at, you're saying just the rule would need to be amended? is this rule not based on a statute that we would also have to have amendments to?
It is based on Revenue Taxation Code 670. That would only be that would apply to appraisers, but there is a special exception there. The special exception there is to auditor appraisers. There is an additional requirement for a auditor appraiser. The auditor appraiser requires an actual 4-year degree, either in accounting or a degree with specialization in accounting. And Ms. Lumsden went over what that is 18 units of a related accounting and auditing experience classes. Or you have one of the other 3 requirements that you can meet.
I understand.
If you're elected assessor, yep, okay.
I understand that for auditor appraisers. So you're telling me RTC 670 does not require a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree with experience in order to be a real property appraiser?
It does not. It does not require a 4-year degree. Is that your question? Yes.
Yeah, it does not require a degree, and the experience that we have in our rules and our LTA, that was board discretion.
That's how I understand it to be. Ms. Lumsden, do you understand it any differently?
No, that is correct. I actually am looking at Revenue and Taxation Code Section 670A right now, and and I actually kind of stated it during my presentation. It does not discuss the amount of time. It simply states that they must be certified, and then talks about that the certification, passing the certification exam, and it's only the auditor appraiser that requires an actual degree or to have met one of these other 3 requirements. And it's the property tax rules that indicate how that will be met.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I too was just pulling up 670, so that's helpful. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Well, now that you brought that up, I have a quick question now. So is there a possibility under our current rule for somebody with, let's say, an AA degree, let's say we have a sharp person with an AA degree in business or real estate or some related field, to take the exam right at the beginning for certification?
If they only have an AA degree and no other qualifying relevant experience, the answer is no. They do not meet the qualifications for a certification, temporary or permanent.
So even if they were to pass the exam, it wouldn't matter.
Correct. It does not bar them from working in an assessor's office, performing other duties related either as an assistant or appraiser trainee. So it doesn't bar them from going in and doing other types of work other than putting value on the role for which taxes are based. So anything short of exercising judgment and value, they can do.
Okay. Members, any other questions?
Vice Chair Schaefer.
Vice Chair Schaefer, go ahead.
I agree that we're going to have to be more liberal in how we're gaining our staff. I don't know that it's that discretionary. If Prop 15 passes, we're going to have to be going out into the streets and the parks to see who might like to have an interest in learning about appraisal work. I look to Mr. Young to make these recommendations as to how we best can do it. and protecting the professionalism of the office, but making good use of our trainees and our assistants and having judgment in their supervisors, being able to say this guy has it, this girl has it, and this one doesn't, and make like on the battlefield promotions like we're used to at wartime. We're coming into wartime, and we have to give that kind of discretion to the people that work to us. And so I speak in support of David Young's urging that we be a little more liberal in this situation.
Thank you. Ms. Davis, can we check with AT&T and see if there's any other comments, public comments on this?
Absolutely. AT&T, can you please check the line to see if there are any public commenters available?
Certainly, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to make a public comment, please press 1, 0, 1, then 0. And we have no one in queue.
Question, if I could, Chair Vasquez, this is Member Gaines.
Member Gaines, go ahead.
So I'm just trying to take a look at this 670 section D, and looks like there's an or clause in here, and this would be for the auditor or auditor appraiser position. So it talks about or a city civil servant or merit system examination regularly given for the position of accountant or auditor by the testing body, or holds the office of assessor. So could you have someone that has no college education take the exam, and if they pass the exam, they can be an auditor or yeah.
So, Mr. Gaines, this is Patty Lumsden.
Auditor.
And so that provision, so as you noticed that there are one of 4 ways to meet the auditor appraiser designation in addition to the appraiser. But they would still have to be able to meet the requirements to be certified as an appraiser, which would require them to meet those other qualifications. But if someone that only had the experience that we described in Property Tax Rule 283A, if they took the exam, and we actually give that accounting exam that they're talking about in there, we proctor that and give it. If they pass that, then no, they would not need to have a degree.
Okay. But then
they still would have to be able to meet. They would still have to be able to meet the requirements of Property Tax Rule 283A, though.
Okay, and so would that be experience?
They could do it with experience, or a combination of education, either or.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I guess I'm just trying to figure out, is there enough flexibility? And I think this is what Tony's after. Is there enough flexibility in the existing statute where when we get into this emergency scenario, just like Member Schaefer was saying, where we got to get a lot of people moving through and get them hired, is there enough flexibility for that to happen with existing rules or statute?
And we currently have had people do
Chairman
that already.
Vasquez?
Yes, Ms. Dowers, go ahead.
It sounds like we're all looking for some opportunities here to be a little bit more flexible on how the BOE and the county assessors hire real estate appraisers and maybe even auditor appraisers. I think this is a good time to direct our executive director to draft proposals on various alternative paths to expand this employment opportunity.
That's good. Yes.
Chair Vasquez?
Yes.
This is Don Gakel, CAA president. And I'm sorry, I meant to comment earlier, but I hit my receiver and disconnected, so I just got back in. I wanted to remind, as part of the preparation for the July hearing And on this particular topic, I surveyed all county assessors in the state, received 37 responses, and with full knowledge of the pending split roll, 23 assessors said no, they did not want to change the standard. 14 said yes. When weighted by population of county responding, the no side was about 80%, weighted by staff size around the state. So it's not changing the standard is not necessarily something that assessors are looking for at this time.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because if you're saying even if Prop 15 passes, I'm wondering how they expect to carry out their duties.
Well, I mean, that could change, but this was done in with that in mind. Just reporting the results of that survey in question.
Wow. And I'm assuming you talked to LA County.
Yes.
Because LA County alone is 10 million people. That's basically a fourth of the state.
Yeah, LA County was planning on doing some other things, because I think LA County had always required a 4-year degree and didn't take advantage of the other options in terms of less education, more experience. And I know they were looking at options looking at options beyond that, but that was at that time. They could have changed their viewpoint, but
Yeah,
at the time they were looking for options to combine education and experience, but still target the 4-year mark. But you know, if George is on the call and wants to comment, I'd be more than happy to hear from him.
Hi, Don. Still on the line, Mr. Chairman. We have various positions. We do have an appraiser assistant position that we were looking to utilize, which does not require a 4-year degree, but ultimately would lead to a full appraiser position, assuming that those individuals reach the minimum requirements. So the appraiser assistants can carry out the functions of appraisers, such as diagramming, costing, etc. We simply can't have them exercise value judgment until they reach the level where they are certified as an appraiser.
Yeah, that's correct. That was my understanding.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, Ms. Stowers, were you finished?
I'm just taking it all in, and I really do appreciate what the assessors are saying, and it's just majority of their workload as well. And I understand what LA's County point of view is. And when you guys did the survey, Assessor Gecko, did the assessors give you any rationale or explanation on why they were saying no, beyond they just feel like they need this experience in order to have a well-qualified and diverse employee?
Yes, there was other commentary along with it on both sides. Some counties were in favor of changing the standard, and others were not. But there is more information. I could provide a copy of that. I prefer not to identify necessarily the counties, but I can provide the feedback.
I think it might be helpful if you could provide it to. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I think maybe if you just provide it to Ms. Fleming, and then provide that feedback to Ms. Brenda Fleming, and maybe she could take it in and report back to us on. I still like to see what they're saying, And that could be part of her analysis on various ways to expand opportunities. I'm not saying not for Ms. Fleming to investigate how we can expand this employment series. If that makes sense to everyone, if you guys are all in agreement. But taking in what the
Thank you,
assessors
members.
are saying would be a valuable input.
Thank you, members.
I would
for
be
this
happy to
discussion.
provide that information.
That's all I have to
Thank
say.
you. Thank you, Don. So, hi, members, this is Brenda Fleming. I will be happy to take, listening to this conversation. I think it would be, and I'd be okay with working with my staff and also working with Assessor Gakel and the assessor community to really come up with maybe a path forward. As you can see from this discussion, it clearly has a number of elements, and some of the elements are complex. We are all in agreement, absolutely in agreement, that we need to expand and look for paths to bring staff on should split roll pass, but even to fill our queue. The challenge with bringing on some of the, if you want to find a balance, you want to bring on some of the less experienced staff, certainly. It's fresh perspectives, and there are career and growth opportunities there. But the commensurate work that comes along with that is the learning curve that it takes to bring that new employee up to speed so that they're operating at an efficient level. So you certainly don't want to exclude that, but you also want to try to find a balance of having the more experienced staff, i.e. those with the certification, with the education experience and or credentials in terms of certification. What I propose in listening to the comment that Deputy Controller offered is for us to take that offline. Assessor Gakel and I have been having these conversations for some time now, along with the other assessors as we are preparing for split roll should it pass. Let's take that offline. We can certainly come back with a proposal that at least shows some paths forward, so we can look at what our options are. Then we can do further analysis to determine the feasibility of each of those options, and certainly the cost, the timeline, and any other opportunities and or constraints that are related to those opportunities. So if the board would allow, Chairman Vasquez and members, if you would allow us to pull that back and give us an opportunity to have some thoughtful additional discussion and planning and analysis.
That makes sense to me. How do the rest of the members feel?
This is Yvette Stower speaking. I think that's an excellent path forward.
I would agree. Thank you.
All right.
I concur, Vice Chair.
Well, with
Thank you,
that,
members, for your support.
well, thank you. And thank you to your staff. They did an excellent job with this. I know it's very difficult, and we're just actually, I know everybody's really trying to just prepare for the worst here. And I know in large counties, regardless of what happens in November, they're in a position where I think they need some creative help here. Well, with that, let me have Ms. Davis please introduce our next item and sub-item.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, would you like to go to AT&T just to see if there are any public comments on this item before we move to the next item?
I thought we did already, but go ahead.
Okay. AT&T, can you just double check to see if we have any public speakers on this matter before we move forward?
Okay. Once again, if you would like to make a comment, please press 1, then 0, 1, 0. And we have no one in queue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Davis, go ahead.
The next item is BB3, Community College Curriculum and Partnerships. This is the only sub-item. It is a discussion and overview of existing appraisal education classes offered by community colleges and review of partnership opportunities to expand appraiser training and course options available through community colleges, including consideration of minimum appraiser job demand needed for community colleges, to expand offerings, and the possibility of short-term certificate, condensed career academy opportunities, scholarships, loan forgiveness programs, or other incentives for entering the appraiser profession. The first speaker is Dr. Ryan Corner, Vice Chancellor of Educational Programs and Institutional Effectiveness Los Angeles Community College District. Mr. Vice Chancellor, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to speak. I've been listening to the whole meeting, and I have to tell you, I've learned a great deal and a lot that will help in the relationship that we're building with LA County Assessor's Office. We're very excited about the partnership with the Assessor's Office and about some recent, regarding some recent support from our Board of Supervisors in that realm as well. We really look at this as an excellent opportunity to collaborate. In speaking with the training staff, the classes that have been prepared, the curriculum, and the effects of what they do with their trainees is absolutely exceptional. And we are really looking for ways in which we can partner to help adapt that curriculum, adopt that curriculum, and offer it through some of our coursework to expand the people that are able to take the coursework, and also to take some of the pressure off of the local training that is oftentimes not meeting the needs for those retirements that they're facing. We already have real estate and accounting courses in the books, but what we're really excited about is learning the specific needs of the county so that we can make sure to have those elements in there and prepare students for the certifications. I do want to say that there was a lot of speaking today about COVID and moving online, and that is one area where we're definitely working with the county to see how we can support these efforts. As has been said by others, the community college system in California uses a learning management system called Canvas. It's used statewide, and it truly is exceptional and allows for both synchronous and asynchronous communication with students, and for really making sure that you can maintain relationships as you go through instruction. In addition to that, we have exceptional instructional designers and faculty who are skilled and really experts in the nation in terms of online education. Over the last 3 months, we've trained over 1,000 of our faculty on advanced use of Canvas and also in online pedagogy, so that we could better prepare our faculty for working with students in the online environment. And we think that's something we could very much partner with your teams on to help build that expertise. Because as it was said earlier, it is definitely not something that's an easy transition. Now, as we work through these current efforts that we're very excited about, I did want to throw out a future opportunity. There are other ways in which public entities have engaged in training programs throughout the state. And the one that I'd like to compare what we're attempting to do here is our public safety academies. Within our state regulations, we are allowed to partner with public safety agencies, which would be the police, the sheriffs, and the fire departments. And through those relationships, we actually engage in a partnership where the fire personnel and the police personnel actually still conduct the trainings, but under our accreditation and in a relationship with the local community colleges, so that the students get units, accredited and college units, through those courses that are offered by the local entity. This provides a real value for students and for both the college partner and the public entity partner. The way that it works is that the college certifies the instructors very similar to the way that we would do our own faculty to make sure they meet state minimum quals for teaching the class. The instructors teach the class as they would through the local entity. The college awards credit, and through a relationship, it is no cost to the students. In fact, the tuition is covered through a revenue sharing agreement, so that revenue actually goes back to the county assessor's office for conducting these trainings. We've been doing these relationships with our LA County Sheriff's Department, with LA County and LA City Fire, among others. And you will see this model across the state. Currently, the regulations at our community college level specify that this is only for public safety agencies. But I believe that what would be really effective in working with the assessor's office and with the Board of Equalization would be to adopt a newer model within the community college system that changes this from public safety to public service. And of course, the assessor's office is a valuable public service that's provided. And through that relationship, if we can have that regulatory change on our end, I believe that we can actually increase not only the training opportunities for you and for your assessor offices, but also provide valuable resources back into those assessors' offices for the commitment that they have towards training. Because we do know that every time you have one of your advanced level people providing these training, that is one less advanced level person that can be doing the industrial and the commercial properties that were spoken about previously. There's been a lot said, and I will reserve any other comments for questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Corner. Your presentation was very helpful, and I really appreciate the time you took today to participate. We are so grateful for your practical advice and suggestions, and I know you're on a real time schedule here. So let me ask the members now if we have any comments or questions for Dr. Corner at this time.
None for me.
Ms. Stowers, okay.
Vice Chair Schaefer, I have no comments.
I had one if I could.
Sure, Member Gaines, go ahead.
Yeah, just in terms of the rule change, there's mention, is that statute driven, or what would we have to do in order to open up the community colleges for training?
In my review, I believe that it's only regulatory, so we would have to take it through our chancellor's office at the state level with Dr. Oakley and with the Board of Governors there. And it would really require just one word change. However, I do want to say, even without that change, we're prepped and ready to engage in this partnership. I just believe that with this change, it would actually bring valuable resources to the assessor's office. I had heard comments earlier about reductions in training staff and those things. And I think this would bring a lot of sustainability to the partnership on both ends and allow you to expand your training programs.
Fantastic. That's great. So yeah, if we could follow up on that, I'm sure Tony's or Chair Vasquez is on top of that. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Chair Vasquez?
Yes, is that Ms. Evans?
Yes. I just want to point out that I think Ms. Fleming addressed it earlier, but Ms. Cohen has met with Chancellor Oakley as well as Dr. Weber, their Vice Chancellor of Workforce and Economic Development. And the items addressed by Vice Chancellor Comer, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, have been discussed, and there is full embrace by the Chancellor himself to partner with the Board of Equalization. We have started initial discussions for pilots, certainly in Northern California, but it sounds like it might make sense, Chair Vasquez, that we consider the work that Assessor Prang and his office with your partnership is engaged in to create a similar partnership in Southern California. As clearly stated by the presenter, there are many resources that the workforce development arm of the Chancellor's office has that are just on point as it relates to our needs from a degree program perspective, from a certificate program perspective, and just on-the-job training, using our resources and their resources collectively. Ms. Cohen has also had conversation with the governor's office, and there is a real partnership at every level of government to try to address this issue collectively.
No, thank you. Thank you for those comments. We will definitely take that up with as we move forward.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions of the Dr. Corner, I just wanted to make sure we be respectful of his time. We'll move on. unless I'm hearing from other members.
Chairman Vasquez, this is Brenda Fleming. Excuse me, sorry. I just wanted to weigh in, to add a little bit more to what Ms. Evans was commenting on. I had the opportunity, was invited to participate in a conversation with Assessor Fong Law out of the Alameda area and Ms. Cohen's office to chat a little bit more about what Dr. Corner is speaking to. And just to kind of weigh in a little bit more on that it really is sort of it sounds like, and Dr. Corner, please correct me if I'm misstating any portions of the program, but my takeaway from the discussion with Assessor Fong Law's office and Vice Chancellor Dr. Weber was really around establishing some partnerships around your apprenticeship program, Earn and Learn, and kind of on-the-job training. And so there are some other opportunities for us to look at if the assessors would be open to that, and it would be more of a pilot perhaps that Assessor Law is looking into, where there could be a partnership between the community colleges and an assessor's office. Sounds like somewhat similar to what Los Angeles is doing. We could come up with some minimum requirements for what a student would need to have to then come into this on-the-job training. And so there was definitely more detail that we needed to work out. So Dr. Corner, if you have some insight into that, but it really would give, it's like in days of old when you really were in an apprenticeship program, a pseudo internship program where you're actually in college, but you're also getting some working level experience. With some possibility of, as being a part of the assessor's office, it would be potentially a compensated position also. So it's a win-win. Certainly it is an investment in the staff for longer-term workforce development in the assessor's office, but I just wanted to weigh in and just appreciated the opportunity that Ms. Cohen gave me to participate in the discussion with the assessor and some of those ideas. It was just a healthy discussion. Again, Dr. Corner, I'm not sure if you were aware of that or if that describes some of what you're referring to.
Some of it, and I think it was really well said. One of the main comments that I took away with today, and it was something that I had kind of noticed when working with LA County as well, is that for people who aren't working through the actual assessor's office, the qualifications and coursework that they have to take is not necessarily always that clear. I think the term that was used earlier on the call was that it sometimes has to be cobbled together. And so in developing those apprenticeship type programs and that work experience model, the other element of that is making sure that we refine our curriculum so that it's a concrete pathway that's very visible and accessible to students so that they know these are the specific courses that are going to be needed to meet the requirements for the assessor's office and to be able to participate in the program. So yes, absolutely looking at that workforce experience model, but also updating our curriculum so that it meets the needs of the Board of Equalization and of the local assessor's offices.
Correct. That was my recall. Thank you for that. And certainly was one of the things that we could discuss to circle back to with Dr. Weber also to kind of flesh that out a little bit more about what some of those requirements were. And so I actually have on my to-do list an assignment to get her some additional information. So thank you for that.
Thank you. If there's no other comments from the members, Ms. Davis, I think it's my understanding that Dr. Weber would not be available until after 3 today. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe it's after 3:15.
Oh, 3:15. So what I was going to suggest to the members is, one, we could have, I believe Chris Cassatt from my office is prepared to read a statement into the record that kind of surmises what we were discussing at the end of our hearing yesterday with the AABs, and then possibly take a short break until Dr. Weber is able to join us. Are people comfortable with that?
Sure, that's fine.
All right, if I can get Ms. Cassatt, Chris Cassatt, are you available?
Yes, I am, sir. I'm not sure if the work group members are online. I believe we informed them that the discussion on this item would be around 3:30, unfortunately.
Oh,
So, yeah, so I'm not sure that they're available at this moment. However, you do have, I believe, a set of recommendations, points for an outline on the workforce, the report, the matter that we've been discussing this morning. I could review that.
oh yes. Why don't we do that?
Okay. So based upon this workforce hearing and the prior ones, the chair is suggesting an outline for the workforce report, or a strategy for an outline, and it includes, for your consideration, and it includes basically 3 action items, so that we could move forward with these deliverables. The first item is in the report. The actual workforce need should be clearly documented. This will be a public report, and we need to clearly state that the appraiser and auditor appraiser workforce is a need statewide, whether or not Propositions 15 and 18 are approved. There is substantial data that this work group and the prior work groups have provided, as well as BOE, both for small, mid-size, and large counties. And BOE has conducted a study on its appraiser and auditor appraiser workforce needs. All of that should be documented in the report. So that's number 1. Number 2, the second action item is to complete a compensation and classification analysis, some sort of analysis and documentation. As the work group has indicated, it preferably would occur in coordination with CalHR. It should be a compensation study or plan that could be submitted to the legislature with any potential changes in compensation and classification levels that are needed for appraisers and or auditor appraisers. Again, there is substantial data that the work group has provided for small, mid-size, and large counties on this issue, as well as BOE, and that should be included in the report with as much detail as possible to ensure that the counties and the legislature knows that the counties and the BOE can fully execute their constitutional assessment responsibilities, and that the correct amount of property tax revenues are collected as indicated by the LA County Assessor. Number 3, recruitment, retention, and training should be placed in a practical plan that involves the partnership with the community colleges to the extent possible. On recruitment, the report should address efforts to work with the community colleges to publicize and attract potential candidates in the appraiser and auditor appraiser field as a career option. The information they could provide would be related to job qualifications, salary levels, the need for diversity, and growth projections in this field in the state of California over the next 5 years, which will be faster than average for many other occupations if the current propositions are approved. Also, in terms of recruitment, the community college partnership may create a nexus between county assessors and the BOE to keep community colleges fully informed of appraiser and auditor appraiser job opportunities on a regular basis, and work on expanding the current 2-year AA degree courses in real estate appraisers and the real estate appraisal profession. And finally, in terms of future efforts related to recruitment, with the community colleges, the report should definitely explore opportunities for a public service academy, as mentioned by Dr. Coroner, and internship and apprenticeship programs in the appraisal profession, as mentioned by Member Cohen's deputy, Regina Evans. And finally, the last item under the partnership with the community colleges would be on retention and training, and that would involve working with the community colleges to develop and expand the appraiser and auditor appraiser course offerings, both for new hires and for permanent appraisers who need to advance to another level. And definitely, if the propositions pass, this effort should include more advanced level appraisal courses for commercial and industrial appraisers. And finally, for small and rural counties, the effort with the community colleges should explore the options for appraiser and auditor appraiser courses for new hires, with courses that are taught in a short time frame. So intensive 2-week courses, interim session courses for those who need expedited training in order to get them working in a very short time frame. So those are the 3 points that the chair has outlined for your consideration in the workforce report.
Thank you. Thank you for surmising that. And members, now that we just gave this outline for you to consider, do we have any thoughts or questions, members?
Comment if I could.
Sure.
Vasquez. Yeah. Thank you. I just I want to thank you, Chair Vasquez, because I just think you've done a great job. This has been really extensive, very thorough. We had a number of great speakers, and the outline that you've presented, I support. I think it makes perfect sense, and I think we've gleaned a lot from these 2 days, and I think our executive director Fleming is right there with us in terms of the areas that we need to move forward on. And I think we can certainly expand on this opportunity through the community colleges, and that would be exciting to have an academy for public service, and why not launch it with the BOE and the challenges that we have forthcoming. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you and your staff, because I know we had an opportunity to bounce some ideas off of you earlier on, especially on this issue, and appreciate the time that you and your staff also shared with us. Any other comments or suggestions from the members?
Chair.
Ms. Stowers, go ahead, and then we have Vice Chair.
No, Vice Chair, I'm sure you can go ahead first.
Vice Chair.
I was just concerned that I thought it was public knowledge that we closed down at 3 o'clock, and I'm surprised that we have somebody planning to speak to us at 3:30. I guess they didn't know our time frame.
Actually, you're right. We set it for 3, but our drop is 4. Is the we can't go beyond 4 o'clock.
Okay, well, it's all right. I withdraw my comment. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Stowers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This was a great 2 days, and I'm just trying to, and I appreciate the action items that your staff listed for the workforce group report. And I'm just trying, and there's a lot there. So I just wondering, is this a deliverable report that Chair, your office is going to prepare, or is this a deliverable that we're pushing to the executive director? I just need clarification and expectations and workloads.
Well, what we're looking to do is we're going to move it forward if there's a consensus here from the members, and then we will work with the executive director, but try to do as much as we can internally within my office, because we know we don't want to put a heavier burden on our executive director right now as well.
Okay.
Thank you, members. I appreciate that.
Okay, I tried to write down everything that was said on the action items, but it was a lot. Is it possible to get a quick email on these action items before I sign off on them?
Sure, that's not a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Vasquez,
Yes, Ms. Evans, go ahead.
knowing that this issue area is extremely important to Ms. Cohen and mindful of the comments just made by Ms. Stowers, I'm wondering if your office could circulate that document to the board and allow the board to act on it at the next meeting.
I am fine with that. Any other thoughts from other members? If not, members, I'm going to suggest we take a short break, and it's my understanding that we would have Dr. Weber back on at about 3:15. I'm sorry?
Hi, this is Shani Weber.
Oh.
Calling in to present.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, I apologize. I wasn't sure how this is working.
Ms. Davis, you want to go ahead and call the next speaker then?
Yes, absolutely. Ma'am, first of all, Dr. Weber, we can't hear you. Our next speaker is Ms. Shani Weber, Vice Chancellor of Workforce and Economic Development for the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office. Welcome back, Ms. Weber. Go ahead, we can hear you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Vasquez and members. I apologize, I don't quite know everyone on the line, but I'm Shani Weber, Vice Chancellor for California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office. And I am here to present to you, as I understand it, an overview of the possibilities of how we might be able to work with the Board of Equalization to partner on addressing the workforce needs that the BOE has, particularly around appraisers that's needed potentially as the split roll passes in November, should that happen. So what I'd like to do is go through some of the data that we are aware of in terms of our programs related to real estate, discuss possibilities for partnerships, talk about student recruitment options, financial assistance, and ways to expand programs to address the workforce needs. Let me start with the data that we have related to real estate AA and AS degree programs that we have in our colleges. We have 5 colleges that offer AA and AS degree in real estate. And we, the last year that we have data for, which is fiscal year 18-19, we awarded a total of 184 AA and AS degrees. El Camino, in particular, is one of the colleges offers an AA degree in real estate appraisal. And in 18-19, 21 awards were made. 5 other colleges offers certificate programs in real estate appraisal, awarding a total of 197 certificates. And then we have a combination of around 47 other colleges that offers various real estate certification programs, some with low numbers of awards, and they essentially are general real estate certificate programs. Based on a recent discussion with the Board of Equalization leadership, if we're looking at increasing the number of appraisers to fill current vacancies, future needs, there are a few models that are potential options for developing this workforce pipeline. Beyond traditional degrees and certificates, there are a few models in particular that are actually very appropriate for careers such as appraisers, because it requires a lot of specialty knowledge and experience. And this form of training could really benefit producing this type of careers. The first one I want to talk about is the learn and earn programs, or earn and learn programs, depending on your preference of order. This model is very similar to the registered apprenticeship model. It could be because there would be a very heavy on-the-job training component coupled with classroom learning. Students would be employed during the program, which is a plus, and they would transition to full-time employment upon completing the program. And this Learn and Earn program, currently there isn't any state standards, and so there's an opportunity to really build a new model for the state and really pioneer this kind of program. The second model is what many of us are familiar with, the registered apprenticeship program. This model would require a minimum of 2,000 hours of classroom and on-the-job training component combined. There are additional Department of Apprenticeship Standards requirements that would need to be met. Such a model would be more effective, especially if it's sanctioned and approved by the Board of Equalization, being the jurisdiction over the appraiser certification. Finally, we have the pre-apprenticeship program. Very similar to the registered apprenticeship program, the pre-apprenticeship programs does entry-level training that prepares an individual to enter an apprenticeship program. So when they complete a pre-apprenticeship, they would immediately enter an apprenticeship program. So there's also the possibility of stacking pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs together, or some kind of pre-apprenticeship program with learn and earn programs. All of these models, though, require committed employer partnerships with, in this case, the 58 County Assessor Office, because they're the ones, as I understand it, have the jobs and are the employers. Our workforce programs are successful when we have very deep engagement from the employer partners in designing, evaluating, monitoring, and proving those programs, as well as the recognition of those awards, because that leads to employment. And any of these models could also be used as a format to create an academy, an appraiser academy, so to speak, which I understand is an interest of the Board of Equalization. And moving on, I just want to talk a little bit about student recruitment. In terms of how do we attract more students into this field of study, given that earlier I mentioned the number of awards that we have statewide in real estate. The most important thing that we've learned is the ability to have very clear career and education pathways for students with the promise of employment at the end. That is very attractive to our students. They're looking for clarity, the quickest way to achieve and earn the skills that's needed to do a job well. So there are ways we could, in terms of co-designing work-based learning opportunities with the county assessor offices for our current students who may be interested in pursuing this career, to expose more students to these careers. And there's also opportunities to engage even in the high school space. We could also broaden the recruitment pool by identifying adjacent skills or disciplines and in degrees or certificate programs. So maybe other than real estate, business obviously is the most obvious ones. Perhaps in construction, there could be possibilities there depending on certain types of trades. For example, if somebody is studying to be a construction project manager, there are different ways we can engage in active recruitment with the community, and particularly if we can be very clear about the benefits of such a career and provide more understanding for students of what does it take and what is that profession like. And then working directly with campus centers to advertise and recruit for these positions and providing some coaching for our students as well. In terms of financial assistance to remove barriers and increase participation in this career choice, there's different programs on our campus. For example, federal work study that we can leverage. Federal work study are essentially real-world work experience that's provided to our students. It will usually helps propel their ability to get a job, and also gives them exposure to careers that they may not have considered that they think would be a good fit for them. A lot of these federal work studies require off-campus work, and so partnerships with the employers would help in this respect. And then in terms of financial aid, students who enroll in as few as 3 units would be eligible for financial aid. And we can certainly explore loan forgiveness and other scholarships opportunities. And we would want to work with the Board of Equalization to get your input and establish some careers and explore this further. So how do we expand? I think one of the questions that we're all interested in looking at, given this is a very viable public sector career, how do we expand our programs to help build more future workforce and produce them in the currently and in the future pipeline? We, as colleges have funding, seed funding, and as well as grants that we can offer to start up new programs. Apprenticeship programs can be expensive, but the partnership with employers is going to be key. Short-term programs are very, very doable. It requires, again, employer participation and engagement, and structure interview process built into the program near completion. Let me stop there. I know I've said a lot, and if there's any questions for what I've covered.
No, thank you. Members, I don't know if it was made clear, but we were supposed to have a second speaker actually from Los Rios Community College District, which was Dr. King, but he is not available. So I'm going to open it up for any questions or comments you may have of Dr. Weber.
Yeah. This is Vice Chair Schaefer.
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Yeah, Dr. Weber, I enjoyed very much your presentation. I had no idea there were so many certificates and degrees available, and no idea how somebody can be working and learning at the same time. It makes an awful lot of sense. And I just, you've opened up a whole new understanding to myself, and I'm sure a lot of other people, and I want to thank you for being with us today.
You're very welcome.
This is Member Gaines, if I could just make a comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Dr. Weber for her presentation, and I think what's interesting about it is that there's a possibility, it provides a track for someone who can't afford college. There's a pathway where you can get the college units that then could turn into an internship, that then can turn into a job. And that is very encouraging to see that there are those sorts of opportunities, especially in a county assessor's office or even at the BOE. I mean, these are good positions that pay well, have opportunity for advancement, good benefits. So thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Member Stowers?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Ms. Evans?
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Evans.
thank you. Vice Chancellor Weber, thank you for being here today. On behalf of Ms. Cohen, I just want to thank you for your presentation. We have had the great fortune of spending time with you as well as with Chancellor Oakley. And before you arrived today, Ms. Fleming, our executive director, and I to highlight some of the strategies we've discussed with you and the potential for pilots. So thank you for being able to elaborate on that. I think, as Mr. Gaines stated and Mr. Schaefer stated, there are endless possibilities about how the board can partner with the community colleges across the state. What Ms. Cohen found very exciting is that your colleges are positioned all across the state. Of course, the 58 counties are similarly situated, and so it creates some real synergy and some real options for us, not only to provide training for our current employees and to provide a pathway for residents throughout this state to engage in our business and explore career opportunities at the Board of Equalization as well as the assessor's offices. But I just think the possibility for the synergies and the win-wins are endless. And we just thank you for your presentation and just look forward to building upon the work that we've started.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you and helping more individuals enter this career.
Thank you again, Ms. Weber. I know you were on a very tight schedule, and I appreciate you were able to get back to us right away.
Thank you for this opportunity. Have a very good rest of the day.
You do the same, and I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Members,
Goodbye.
I'm sorry, who was that? Did somebody want to make a comment?
Chair Vasquez, this is Don Gakel, Stanislaus County Assessor.
Yes, go ahead.
I don't want to take away from the board's time, but I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed today's portion of the board meeting. It was good to explain what our situations are, and especially good to hear the training portion of today's program. And I guess the only credit at all I can take for that is that I asked Christina Wynn to be chair of the Education Committee. So I'll take that little bit of credit. But it was very good. I very much enjoyed hearing the community college speakers and Mr. Glickman, and I think that sounds like a great training opportunity. I know I threw you a little bit of a curve there at the end, but I think that was important information to bring out about the assessor's views of things. And I want to let you know that I've already sent information to Executive Director Fleming, so she can get started on that review. Thank you.
Thank you,
Assessor Gakel.
Ms. Davis, do we have anybody in the queue, or do we have AT&T with any comments on this?
We have not received any written comments on this, but AT&T, if you can check to see if there's anyone who'd like to make a public comment on this matter.
And once again, if you do wish to make a public comment, please press 1, then 0 at this time. 1, 0. And we have no one in queue.
Thank you. Members, that pretty much wraps this up. Now, we do have a closing statement we wanted to make as it refers to yesterday's session about the AABs. And I have Chris Casad from my office prepared to read a statement if she's on the line.
Yes, sir, I am.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So as a result of the testimony and outstanding input and robust discussion of the panel of experts yesterday, the chair is pleased to submit for your discussion, the chair and, I'm sorry, Member Gaines, Member Cohen, we're pleased to submit for your discussion and approval the recommendations for specific guidance on the sub-issues. So the sub-issues in these recommendations reflect a consensus, areas where there was a consensus of the work group members. If after discussion and any modifications by the board, Member Cohen and the chair would encourage approval of these recommendations for inclusion in a letter to assessors at the earliest possible date. So I will read the recommendations, and as I do so, they follow exactly the way the agenda is laid out. So we start with issue A, clarification on the rights of the hearing participants. The first bullet point is the right to the type of hearing, physical or in-person or remote, for both procedural and evidentiary matters. Here is the recommendation that the chair is suggesting. County boards of equalization and assessment appeals boards have the administrative authority and option to provide either in-person hearings and or remote hearings. Participants may reject a remote hearing and may receive a continuance until an in-person hearing is available, or may reject an in-person hearing and receive a continuance since the public health impacts resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic constitute reasonable cause under Property Tax Rule 323 for an AAB to grant such continuances. Where required, continuances beyond the 2-year statute of limitations should require a waiver by the appellant. Second bullet point under A, clarification of rights. Second bullet point addresses short-term right for emergencies or long-term option.
Excuse me, this is Vice Chair Schaefer. Could we have this emailed to us so we would have a copy of it to read? You know, we're used to having material that we can read along with staff, and that's not happening. Thank you.
I would have to defer to the Chief Counsel on that issue, on that question.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Stowers.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was just going to ditto what Member Schaefer just said, because we are being asked to take action to cast a vote, and I'm trying my best to listen very diligently and refer to the prior meeting, but I am not going to vote on anything until I see it in writing.
Is Mr. Najo on the line?
Yes, I'm here, Chairman Vasquez. Unfortunately, we do not have a copy of this either, so I'm not at liberty to say whether or not it could be posted, or the challenge we have is we can't post anything until it's made accessible. and I don't know how long this document is. In all practicality, since we only have a little over 45 minutes or a little under 45 minutes left with regards to the meeting time today, I would rather doubt that we would be able to get this, make it accessible, and post it before the meeting would be expired.
Yeah, that was my concern.
Mr.
It was my understanding, since we had to make it ADA required, that it would be difficult to do it. But I also am sensitive to the comments from the members to be able to take any action without actually seeing something in writing. What we could do is, I'm sorry, who's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just sent the document to Mr. Nanjo and to the executive director. It is in the form of a motion. So I don't know, Mr. Nanjo, whether the requirements that you're speaking of apply to a board motion, but it's written out as talking points for a motion. So I believe the chair would be fine with.
Ms. Kazat and members, this is Brenda Fleming, Executive Director. So can I offer this, understanding the timeliness that we're trying to achieve with getting guidance out? Would it be acceptable to the board to, as we've done on prior items relative to LTAs and guidance, just to give me direction to proceed with the establishment of a draft of guidance based upon the consensus items that were taken up over the last, through yesterday's discussion? I think we can go through that material. We all heard the same thing and participated in the discussion. We can then prepare a draft of it. We'll be happy then, of course, to send it back to the members for their preview, as we normally use our LTA process for clearance. That way it allows us to at least look at it, and I think the board would be probably, I'm assuming, would be okay with our standard practice, which is to direct the ED to proceed with guidance.
And just for the record, Ms. Kazad, I just received your email, and it's a copy of the talking points and script. It's not a copy of the recommendations.
So if the board pleases, you could, if you're comfortable with the chairman and members, if you just give us direction, we can then go through, do our analysis of the consensus items, and then present it back through our clearance process. I'm just sensitive to us trying to get this clearance out as quickly as we can.
Chair Vasquez?
I'm comfortable with that. How do the other members feel? Member Gaines?
Yeah, just clarify in my mind. So sounds like what we'd be moving forward with is what we agreed to in terms of consensus during this 2-day workshop. Is that accurate?
Yes. And
by doing so, we give the executive director the ability to move forward on an LTA?
Yes.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that, since those are all consensus items. I'd like to hear from my board members, my colleagues.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Member Gaines. And again, because we did have public discussion on this item, it was public discussion and hearing about what items were achieved consensus. And again, we still have an opportunity through our clearance process before the document is released for members to preview it. So. Thank you.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. I agree with Member Gaines.
Okay.
This is Yvette Stowers.
Go ahead,
you
Ms.
guys have? Yes. Did the work group leaders have an offline discussion with all the work group members, and they all agreed to these recommendations? Have they had an opportunity to read this document or the suggested motion?
It's my understanding that we kind of capsulized what we thought was a consensus. Now, if you all, when you all get it, at the end of the day, it's going to turn into an LTA. And if you're comfortable with it, we go forward. If not, we don't do anything.
I hear what you're saying, but considering that we spent 2 long days receiving input from stakeholders, I just want to make sure that they have an opportunity to see this product and one more time say, yes, we are in agreement or we're not in agreement before we move forward. They're not on the line right now, or are they on the line? If there are any of the stakeholders on the line and they can just give give me some confidence that they have been in conversations with your staff and they're on an agreement, I'll be willing to move forward and receive the draft LTA and then decide whether or not to vote for it to be published.
Ms. Stowers.
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles County. Speaking for myself, I have not seen this document that Ms. Kazad was starting to read into the record. So just so you know where I'm at.
This is John Gakel. I have also not seen the document.
What if we did?
San Diego County, we have not seen the document as well.
Maybe we should. Chair Vasquez?
I move that we put this over.
Ms. Stowers, what I was envisioning
based on what we just heard from the assessors, and I've also received an email from another stakeholder, they have not been consulted since the online meeting. I prefer to put this over for they can be consulted, and then we can take a vote at our October meeting.
Well, we're not proposing to move anything without you all folks looking at this LTA. What I was envisioning is that we're basically giving direction to staff. They would craft this LTA with conversations with the folks, the stakeholders, ones that we're hearing from right now, and others that maybe not even be on the line. And if they're comfortable with it, our executive director would send this draft back to us to see if we're okay with it. If people
I appreciate that. I appreciate that clarification, but I feel like the stakeholders, the workforce, sorry, which group are we talking about? The AAB group, the leads of that group should be consulting with the stakeholders. And once they're on board, then our executive director can draft the LTA. I think we're getting in the reverse direction.
Chair Vasquez?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Member Gaines.
Yes, I'm wondering, maybe it would make sense to just slow it down a little bit, make sure that all the participants are clear on the direction we're headed in. You know, does it create harm to hold this off for next month, get the input, and then make a decision next month?
I'm comfortable either way. I wasn't envisioning any action to obviously taking place until this draft was shared with the stakeholders and then shared with the members. But if folks want to give it a, put it off for another month, I'm fine with it. I would just, I think we're forgetting that we're in this crisis situation where we need to act on many of these things or try to move things as quick as possible. But if people want to give it another month, we can give it another month.
I'm wondering if it'd be possible for Brenda Fleming to meet with the members of the work group and get input from them, and then come forward with an LTA at the next meeting. So it'd be kind of the same thing, but you'd be seeking a little input in between the meetings.
Exactly. Is Brenda on the line?
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. Is Brenda?
Is Brenda there?
Yes, I'm here, members.
Oh.
This is what I was envisioning. Am I off, Brenda?
No, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So if the desire is that I can go offline, if the board is at your pleasure, I can go and make contact with the representatives of the work group, as was established at last month's meeting, that defined group. We can flesh out the additional detail, make sure that we've got agreement and consensus, frame a draft of the proposed LTA, then using our normal process, we can provide you a preview of that through our clearance process before it would be released. That, again, would allow us to be timely with releasing guidance.
Chair Vasquez, this is Vice Chair Schaefer.
Vice Chair Schaefer, go ahead.
Well, we've been meeting out this week. What about a brief meeting in a couple of weeks when all this stuff is tied together? maybe we don't want to burden our October already busy calendar. I'm willing to meet in a week or two to close this out.
So members, if I may, it would be a great challenge for us right now as we're going to the appeals hearing timeframe to be prepared to have another meeting between now and the 10th. So my recommendation would be that you direct me to spend some time with the work group, finalize the consensus material, and then, as we proposed, offer a draft of the guidance.
That sounds good to me, Vice Chair Schaefer.
Thank you. Mr. Gaines, Member Gaines.
Well, I was thinking a meeting in a couple of weeks would be an alternative. We wouldn't have to wait a whole month.
Are you comfortable with
Director Fleming is that going to create havoc in your office?
So having a meeting in the next 2 weeks would be problematic for us. Yes, sir. Again, if using our normal process, we can do staff work to flesh out the details that were discussed publicly, so we still have the full transparency, because we would not be adding anything more than what was discussed publicly. We would just be taking that staff work out to come back with a consensus document that allows my staff, including legal, and the property tax experts working with the work group to draft the guidance LTA. That draft version would come back to the members using our clearance process, and that clearance process involves sending it to you via email. It's our normal routine process. You get an example, you get a peek into it, so you see a copy of the draft, and then the members send it back to me with approval to proceed. And typically, under normal circumstances, our preview of that would be 3 days for your review.
Thank you. I would like to hear Member Stowers' opinion.
Thank you. I got a little disconnected there. So you said preview during our regular clearance, and we would still have the ability to say yay or nay, yes or no?
Well, using our normal clearance process, usually the clearance process is not an approval process. It usually is just because we've usually reviewed it and had discussion, which we've done on this one also. It would really be to see if there were any, minor edits, et cetera, to the document. But if we start to get into a lengthy clearance process with heavy editing, then I would say then we would have to come back with further discussion. It would really be for your preview to understand what's being
It shouldn't be that hard to put together a briefing.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. I would move that we have a brief meeting in 2 weeks. I know it may be somewhat of a burden on Brenda, but Brenda has overcome burdens in the past, and she's up to it. I think it's more important to clear our calendar of this, and we do it sooner rather than later.
So I appreciate that, Vice Chair Schaefer. I think the issue is also the impact on the representatives on the group also.
This is Deputy Controller Stowers. Okay. I'm okay with the executive director and her team meeting with the stakeholders, drafting the LTA, and giving us assurance that you've actually had a conversation with them and they're in agreement with everything. And then from there, bringing it to us on a preview clearance. Because I see the importance of moving this forward. And I understand, it would be great if we could have another meeting, but we can't turn a meeting around. It's too costly. And we may have other obligations, other members. We're all quite busy. I sit on a couple of other boards, so I can't even commit to it being available in 2 weeks.
So again, members, just to reiterate, if I may reiterate, we would be, my staff and I would work with the defined work group that was established publicly. That's been the public discussion. I am absolutely confident, because these are professionals that we work with on a regular basis. And it would be a statement of your confidence in all of us as a work group, defined work group, to really just flesh out the final consensus version. So there would be nothing new added to the discussion. So there's nothing outside of the scope of the topics that were agendized. It is just to confirm the areas of consensus. And if that means having some document or material that acts as a control document that just confirms that everyone on the work group has approved it, I'm sure Mr. Parker and others on the line would probably be comfortable with that.
This is Vice Chair Schaefer. Do I have a second to my motion or not? We're discussing the motion without a second.
No, actually, Mr. Schaefer, there was no second. That's why we're just continuing to discuss this.
That's why we're discussing it.
What I wanted to ask is, do we still have some of the workforce participants on the line that are they comfortable with that process? Can we hear from any of those that might be on the line still?
This is Thomas Parker for Los Angeles County. I am comfortable on behalf of my county with the proposal of Ms. Fleming.
Anybody else out there?
This is Marcy.
Hi, members. This is
I'm also
Brian.
comfortable with that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, if no one else is going to go ahead, this is Don Gakel for the Assessors Association. I have no problem with that proposal.
Anybody else out there?
Green Rebowski on behalf of CADA. I just wanted to give our insight. I think so long as we are given a full opportunity to review the document that will ultimately become the LTA and provide any input, I think whatever process we need to make sure that that occurs, we'd be willing to engage in. But of course, getting a full opportunity to review what are portrayed as consensus items is essential.
Thank you.
This is
Anybody
Marcy
else?
from Santa Clara County. I agree with the proposal.
Thank you.
This is Kathy McClellan from Sacramento County, and I agree with the proposal.
Anybody else
This is
out?
Harvey Mazik with San Diego County, and I am also in agreement with the proposal.
Question, if I could, to the motion.
Member Gaines.
Yes. So if we did meet in 2 weeks, I'm just curious, does that answer your concern, Chair, in terms of the delay? You were concerned about a 1 month delay. If we did have the meeting in 2 weeks, that would give us the ability to execute more quickly. We'd still have to answer the question in terms of whether the Workforce Board would be available to answer questions.
Well, it sounds like the participants are willing to work with our executive directors, so I don't think there's a need for us to rush to another meeting if there's a consensus, because basically all Brenda's going to do is put together the LTA that includes the items that there was a consensus on and
Right.
check with the at least with the workforce participants. And if they're all comfortable with, I'm hearing them, they seem to be confident with that or feel okay with that, then I think we could just move forward with that.
Okay, so you're okay.
I'm good with that.
It would set it back another 2 weeks, right? We would be
Possible,
decision in a month
possibly,
versus in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So would like to clarify one. So if members are not participating in the activity or the full board is not participating, then me scheduling a meeting with the work group members that have weighed in on this conversation both yesterday and just confirmed their agreement with the proposal, that doesn't require a public meeting. We do not have to publicly notice that because it would not be a meeting of the full board. It's just staff working together. Similar to what we do when we have meetings with the assessors or any meetings that staff currently have with representatives from these various areas. So that's not a public meeting. It does not require a public notice, meaning the 10-day notice for under Bagley-Keene. So to that extent, if we could schedule that meeting next week with the staff of the working group as identified in that work group, if that population is able to meet next week, we could go through the material that we discussed, the public discussion, confirm that consensus is there. We can create the outline of a document. That's not a problem as long as that is staff work within the work group. Coming out of that meeting, staff working meeting, we would come out, then we would go back within BOE. This normal staff would draft the guidance in the form of a draft LTA, which is our normal process. The board members, using our normal process, get a preview of that document so that it could be released timely. Under that process, my proposal is that we could get that out easily within a week, no more than 2 weeks, versus waiting for 2 weeks to have another convening of the full board. Two things. One, that delays it, and secondly, it is additional workload between now and the October 20th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, just for your consideration, again, this is Brian Rabowski on behalf of CADA. I just want to make sure that we're given an opportunity to review the LTA draft in full before it's considered by the board. And I understand that an outline will be worked out and considered by the working group. I just want to voice the need for us to actually see the draft LTA in full form before we can form an opinion on it.
So I appreciate that comment. We can work within our legal team. I don't think there was a problem. And Chief Counsel Nanjo, if you could weigh in on this, I don't think it would be a problem if we were to, on behalf of CADA's request, if we formalized it in the draft form within the work group, understanding that the final version is actually approved to go out by the board. But again, our agreement would be there would be no additional amendments to it if the work group was comfortable with it. So Henry Nanjo, if you're there
yes.
to allow us to do within a work group draft of the LTA.
Yes, that's fine. The only issue is that, yeah, that actually works out fine. There is no problem with doing that. Thank you.
So it's the board's pleasure.
Members, are we all comfortable with that?
Yeah, just a question of clarification. So it sounds like the workforce group would get input, and at that point, there would be a draft put together by Executive Director Fleming, which then would be presented to us in a month. And if we didn't like what the LTA said, we could amend it there on the spot.
So just to clarify, are you asking us for the work group to draft it, Mr. Gaines, and then come back to you in a month?
Well, okay, but well, yeah, I'm just trying to clarify because I thought you were working on drafting it and that we were going to get input from the work group in terms of how that was drafted. Is that accurate?
Right. What I was proposing is that we could convene the work group next week, prepare the draft of the LTA.
Right.
So that we would be having a document proposing the material would be prepared within 2 weeks.
Okay, and then that draft would go out to members prior to our next meeting?
Yeah, our next meeting is October 20th. So we're trying to, if feasible, it's the board's pleasure, I would recommend we try to get something out sooner versus waiting until October 20th. But of course, yes. The board's pleasure.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of CADA, Brian Rabowski, I think there is some concern given the great importance of this topic to the greater public and the property tax community that this work be performed in public with public comment to the extent necessary. I recognize and fully appreciate the members' commitment to getting this out in a timely fashion. It is certainly a pressing issue for all counties, but given just the huge public impact of what we're undertaking here, I think it is essential that it be done in public, although may potentially not be legally required as such.
Thank you. Let me ask the other participants that might be on the line, are they comfortable waiting until October, or is it their pleasure to maybe, if there's a consensus on this next week, to just move forward with LTA?
This is Thomas Parker from Los Angeles. If the will of the board is to do the process that CADA has decided it supports, we will involve ourselves in that.
Any other members out there or participants?
This is Marcy Berkman, Santa Clara County. We're happy to go forward however the board prefers.
Thank you.
This is Don Gakel, CAA. We're happy to go forward with whatever the board chooses, but I would note, as long as these are consensus items, they've already been discussed in the public setting.
Thank you. Anybody else out there?
This is Marvis Mazik with San Diego County. I'm in agreement with the previous speaker that we will move forward however the board prefers. And I'm also in agreement with the comments that were just made by Don Gakel regarding these the opportunity for the public to participate in yesterday's meeting.
Anybody else out there?
This is not consensus.
Question, if I could.
Sure.
Yeah, Member Gaines, just in terms of the content of the LTA, to what degree do we as members get input in that? So let's say we have a draft. The draft is, number one, can the draft be circulated to members prior to the next meeting? I guess that would be the first question.
Yeah, you know what? Why don't we do this? Let's get the group's going to come together next week, have them prepare the draft, get it out to the members, and then and to the stakeholders, obviously, and then let's just bring it back to our next meeting in October to officially vet it publicly, and then all the members once again get to see it again and discuss it, finalize it, and then move forward.
Can we get consensus on the content of the LTA prior to our next public meeting?
That's what we're hoping to do next week.
Okay, and we can do that under Bagley-Keene?
Well, we would do it, basically, what hopefully is going to come out next week is what we have already discussed and there's a consensus on. We're not looking to introduce something that we didn't hear from the public and the members that there was consensus on.
True, but it's a matter of the interpretation.
Chairman Vasquez and members, yes. This is Brenda again. I'm sensitive to, CADA and some of the other stakeholder group concern about public discussion and transparency. So again, just to restate, I'm fully prepared, as the others are, to support the public meeting. I would just note there that it would be October 20th would be our earliest meeting in order for us to manage the other workload that we currently have. So I'm fully open to public transparency.
Yeah, I was trying to expedite it, but you know what? There's no need to get into anything where I don't want anybody coming back saying this wasn't transparent and make any allegations. So I don't mind waiting. We'll wait until October 20th.
This is Vice Chair. I agree with Chairman Vasquez.
Thank you.
This is Yvette Stowers. I agree, but I just want to make sure that we're all in understanding what's going to happen. Ms. Fleming and her team would meet with the stakeholders to talk about the draft LTA. They will have an opportunity to look at the draft LTA and provide any additional comments as long as it's within what we've already talked about. And then once those individuals have reviewed it, Ms. Fleming would submit it to the board as a preview, and we will provide comment. And then eventually it's going to go on our October 20th PAN, and we will vote.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm in agreement.
Well, I can't see anybody that wouldn't be in agreement with that.
Oh, so I'm sorry. So I don't need to
if there is, we're in
but
trouble.
I'm going to clarify. So if we are having, and I'm totally on board with, convening with the work group to just have the consensus. But I thought that's the piece that I heard some objecting to, that needed to occur publicly. Or is it an issue of we can work on it to reach consensus on the document based upon what's already publicly discussed on consensus, finalize that material, and then we come back in October at that point for what I heard Kate is saying, is they would just want to make sure that they see that public version. I heard two variations from that. And so for those of us who's processing the work across our desk, those nuances matter to us. So Chair, if you could clarify that.
I think you're right on. Basically, we're going to let you prepare this next week with all the participants that were part of this working group. And it's basically, you're just going back to what we already discussed. There's a consensus on. Now you're just putting it into an LTA. So at the end of the day, the only thing I see happening is you guys may be fine tuning this thing with some of those stakeholders and then get it out back to the members. And so they could review it, look at it, and eventually it's going to have to come back and be agendized on the October 20th to officially approve.
Okay, so Chairman Vasquez, if I may, I just want to reconfirm that that's the understanding of the other work group members. And that
Mr.
satisfies,
Vasquez, may I-
the
I'll ask him
transparency.
again. Do we still have
This is Thomas Parker. Now it's crystal clear. Thank you.
I would think so. Anybody else?
Mr. Vasquez?
Hi, I'm Brian Rabowski on behalf of CADA. I just wanted to clarify that while we recognize that these are consensus items,
What is it?
getting these distilled into writing and into a document to be reviewed will be a
Mr.
process.
Schaefer, I think you need to
And we
mute your
think that
mic.
it's im-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Rabowski, if you could hold, please, for mics to be muted, please.
Yes, if you're not speaking, mute your mic, please. Go ahead. Go ahead. We had somebody speaking. I believe it was one of the
I
counties.
believe it was Ms. Rabowski.
Yes.
Hi, this is Brian Rabowski from CADA. I think the most critical part is, of course, that approval happened in public. But I also believe that there is a process between taking the items that we believe are consensus items and distilling and crystallizing those into writing. And the concern is that there's a gap there, and having the public be able to participate in that gap, should that occur, is something that could potentially be important with a topic of this magnitude. So ideally, from our position, it would be best that the public have availability to each and all meetings on this topic. Most importantly, of course, the approval of it, but also the creation of getting from consensus topics to an LTA draft.
So
This is Marcy Berkman from Clark County. I'm wondering if after staff prepares the initial draft, if that could be posted up on the website for a matrix, the same way we do with standard interested party stuff. And that way anyone who needed to look at it would be able to look at it.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was the next thing I was just thinking of, is just the alternative ways that we offer it. And I believe, Dave Young, if you're on the call, if you could weigh in on that, if we could use not the full interested parties process, but if there's a way that we could maintain the importance of public transparency as we're working through this, but still allows us to proceed with preparing the document. I'm talking about the preparation portion, so that there's opportunity for that public review. And then we would then still come back to the board for a final approval and vote by the board at the October 20th meeting.
Ooh, well, the formal process we have, you've already mentioned, is the IP process, but we're talking about something that the IP process is going to be a little tough to use on this. It usually requires a lot more time. The notices alone are about 30 days. Let me try to think of a way in which we can.
Thank you, Dave. So let me just be clear. I'm not asking for an IP process.
Right.
What I'm proposing is there something that would be a similar, albeit abbreviated, but using the same instruments that allow for transparency. So could we produce it and then make it available on our website for review? I'm just looking for those ways. And if we're not prepared to answer that question now, then my recommendation, members, would be that we, if we can't resolve it, because it sounds like when it's this much complexity on the issue, it may be more prudent for us to pull back and then basically prepare the document and then just post it as a part of our PAN process, and then we could return in October.
I think that may be actually a very good suggestion.
Question, if I could, Member Gaines?
Member Gaines, go ahead.
So what if the LTA that shows up on the PAN is not acceptable? Is the process then delayed for another month? And would that then get us back to the motion made by Mr. Schaefer that maybe it makes more sense to have a meeting in 2 weeks, gives you an opportunity to vet it in a public setting, and then you would actually approve the LTA a month from now?
Mr. Gaines, it would be very difficult for us to have a meeting between now and a second meeting, an interim meeting between now and October 20th. And that's why I have to have board support to protect not having that interim meeting.
Chair Vasquez, as a member of the work group, I'd like to make a remark. This is
Go ahead,
Regina.
Ms. Evans.
I'd like the board to consider allowing a document to be posted as part of the PAN that is not the LTA. I think we need to leave the staff with the ability to draft that document. But what we could post is a consensus document very similar to what was going to be read in the record today. Once that is done, the board can give the executive director the direction at the board meeting. And I think even today, the executive director has enough information to draft an LTA based on the discussion that happened. But I think we owe it to ourselves and fulfilling, just as an organization, our constitutional responsibility to not allow any sidebars to occur as it relates to this issue that we've spent a significant amount of time addressing. And I think the work group engagement is important, but I believe if we're not going to move forward with an interim meeting, we want to post a document that's not our LTA. I think we need to
Correct.
protect
That would be correct. That would be
in
correct.
regards to our administrative roles and responsibilities. But we could post as part of PAN a document that reflects what we see as consensus items, and simultaneously, the executive director could be working on a draft LTA that ultimately lines up.
Question, if I could.
Oh, Member Gaines, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to get Henry Nanjo's opinion on that in terms of process, because I like Regina Evans' idea.
Hi, this is Henry Nanjo, Chief Counsel. I don't see any issues with what Ms. Evans is suggesting. That would work out fine.
And that's consistent with what we're offering, is that if we are not going to have the interim work group activities, we, again, to restate, would draft the material. It would be attached as a part of PAN, but it's a draft. And then that draft gives everybody an opportunity to preview it, but it would not be discussed. So again, to the point that we're saying, so that it's full transparency, there would be no discussion on it until the October meeting. We could then provide ample time to review it at that point and have a discussion. So ideally, it would be, again, there in 10 days prior to the meeting. And then we certainly could take it up with the intent of either proceeding or not proceeding at that point.
Okay, Ms. Evans, is that what you were expressing?
I just want to make sure we're on the same page. We are not talking about posting an LTA.
Correct. It's a draft of the guidance, but we've got to have something. I mean, LTA is the final form of the document, but we're drafting something.
I'm not proposing that we post our draft guidance. What I'm proposing that we post is what we have determined as consensus items out of the work group. I think simultaneously, you and your team should start drafting an LTA. That consensus item document will be acted on by the board at the board meeting with input from the work group. You will be prepared once the board acts to go through our regular LTA process to issue something to the board to review, provide input, and then you could ultimately release. I think we owe it to ourselves to not start posting our LTAs publicly for input and review. I think that's something you should keep within your sphere of responsibility and control. But we will, through the consensus document, get agreement from the work group that we have captured those consensus items properly.
I'm comfortable with that if my fellow board members are.
Just a footnote, this is Acting Board Proceedings Chief Henry Nanjo. We have 4 minutes left on this meeting, so please be mindful of the time. Thank you.
Yvette Stowers here. I'm comfortable with what Ms. Evans said.
Anybody else?
Chairman Vasquez, just given that Kata had an opinion on this, I want to clarify that yes, we are supportive of Ms. Evans' outline of action.
I have just a procedural question. So if we go this route, then at October 20th, we'd be voting on basically the consensus item, that document, not an LTA until a later date, it looks like. Is that right, Ms. Fleming?
That would be, so at that point, if we are just posting on the PAN the consensus items, as has been proposed, the consensus items is what the public would be exposed to. We would have, it would be prepared to present for discussion at the October meeting, a draft of the LTA based upon that consensus. I think the nuance is, when do you get, based upon what I heard from Kata, and I think some others, when do you actually get to see a copy of the LTA? Do you want that to be as a part of the public discourse? That's not our norm, to make our LTAs public before they're released. So that's the nuance I'm trying to clarify. So do we go back after we have consensus at the October board meeting for the consensus items? Are we then able to proceed with just drafting the LTA to release it using our normal process, or which element are you voting on?
Well, I'm thinking the best thing at this point is that on October 20th, we approve the document basically on these consensus items. And if there is an approval there, at that point, we would direct you to prepare an LTA moving forward.
Okay, and if everyone's in agreement with that, that allows us to proceed, isn't it?
Well, that's the process we've been using all along, right?
Correct.
Yes, I'm in agreement with that, and we should stick to the process.
Let's do it. All right. So there's an agreement for that. So let's just go ahead. Do we need a motion to that effect?
This is Henry Nanjo, Chief Counsel. It can be direction. I think we're good.
We're good with the direction.
Yes.
All right. That should wrap it up. Now, folks. And wow, we're like a minute off. Just in closing real quick, I just wanted to thank the working group members, the BOE staff, the board members, Member Cohen and her staff, and my staff for all the hard work and dedication they put together these last 3 days. Of course, all the stakeholders that we had and participants at these last 3 meetings, I really, really want to give you a great heartfelt thank you for the time that you put out and to be on this call with us, not only today, but the last 2 days. Many of you participated all 3 days. And I really appreciate the fact that you were able to set aside that time. With that, let me see if there's any other closing remarks, because we're at 4 o'clock, folks.
Vice Chair Schaefer, I have no further remarks. I want to thank you for your stamina and your wisdom, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Member Gaines?
Thank you, Chair Vasquez. Great job. I really appreciate it.
Ms. Towers?
Thank you all.
Ms. Evans, on behalf of Ms. Cohen?
Big thanks to you and your team for all of your great work, and to the staff and the work group members. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're officially adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, members.